Some people call this the world's most dangerous ghost train, but the spirits you'll find here aren't from the afterlife. They're the ghosts of the living, the forgotten commuters of a city that just left them behind. Today, we're heading into the heart of that decay to find out if the real horror isn't a ghost story at all, but the story of what happened to the people who used to ride these rails. Every city has its ghost stories. Cape Town, with its mountains and moody oceans, is no different. You hear tales of phantom ships and restless spirits wandering old buildings. But underneath all that postcard beauty, there's a different kind of haunting. It's a story written in rust and ruin, etched into miles of silent, decaying railway. This is the Central Line. For decades, it was the iron artery of Cape Town, pumping hundreds of thousands of people every day from the sprawling townships into the city. It was the backbone of the working class, a promise of access and opportunity, a promise that was shattered. The story of rail here began in the 1860s, a colonial project to connect the city to the country, but the specific lines we're on today, the ones stretching into the Cape Flats, were developed much later. They became lifelines for communities of color. Many forcibly moved to the city's edge during apartheid. Places like Khayelitsha and Mitchell's Plain came to depend on this single line for their economic survival. Then, around 2019, the artery just clogged. After years of neglect, a canceled security contract, and a tidal wave of vandalism and cable theft, the system collapsed. During lockdown, the silent network was completely vulnerable. Stations were stripped bare, tracks were stolen, and in some spots, people built entire communities over the dead railway lines. The Central Line, once the busiest corridor in the entire Western Cape, went silent. The cost of this is staggering. Before the collapse, the region's rail system served hundreds of thousands of commuters daily. For many of them, a cheap train ticket was replaced by expensive and time-consuming taxi fares, eating up as much as 40% of their income in the worst cases. It's a social and economic disaster that hits the city's poorest residents the hardest. That's the real story. It's not a supernatural haunting, but a haunting of neglect. Today, we're following these ghost tracks. We're going to navigate these dangerous, forgotten spaces to find the truth behind the ghost train of Cape Town. We've been warned it isn't safe. Extortion gangs have attacked workers, and security is a huge problem. But to understand the story of the forgotten commuters, you have to go where they can no longer go. Our journey starts where the living city seems to end. On one side, you have the familiar hum of traffic. On the other, you have this. It's like stepping into a world frozen in time. You feel the difference immediately. The air is heavier, and the silence is only broken by the crunch of broken glass underfoot and the wind whistling through skeletal buildings. We're heading towards Netreg, one of the first stations to fall. What was once a busy hub is now a monument to destruction. The main building is a hollowed-out shell, stripped of its roof, doors, and windows. Graffiti covers every surface, layers of names and messages, like a chaotic, modern tombstone. You can still see the faint outlines where ticket counters used to be, where people exchanged daily greetings. This is where you start to feel the ghosts of the commuters. You can almost hear the echoes, can't you? The morning rush, the tired journey home, the thousands of stories that passed through this exact spot day after day. A City of Cape Town study estimated that a working train service would save lower-income households nearly R1 billion a year. For every person who stood on this platform, that's not just a number. It's the difference between feeding your family and falling deeper into poverty. This station wasn't just concrete and steel. It was a connection to a livelihood. And when it died, a part of the community's hope died with it. It's a heavy thought. If you believe stories like this need to be told, take a second to hit that like button. It really helps more than you know. Leaving Netreg, the path gets even more treacherous. The tracks themselves tell a story of relentless theft. The overhead cables, the copper wires, even whole sections of steel rail, they're just gone. This is the work of organized syndicates, fueling an illicit economy built on the bones of public infrastructure, with rail authorities reporting multi-million rand losses. The damage is so bad it makes repairs a nightmare. For every meter of cable replaced, another is stolen. Walking these lines feels like navigating a ruin. We know these stretches are hotspots for crime. Security guards and repair crews have been attacked, sometimes at gunpoint, and ordered to stop their work. You feel completely exposed out here. Every shadow, every distant sound puts you on edge. This isn't an imagined danger. It's a very real threat. This is the physical horror sitting on top of the economic one. The system didn't just fail, it was violently dismantled. The scale of the destruction is hard to wrap your head around. It points to a level of desperation and lawlessness that grew in the vacuum left behind by a retreating state. I mean, think about the audacity it takes to build a house, brick by brick, right on a railway line. That's exactly what happened in areas like Langa and Philippi, where well over 1,000 homes were eventually built on the tracks and had to be relocated. It shows a total loss of faith that the trains were ever coming back. This abandoned land became a better bet for a home than the transit system it once was. After navigating miles of stripped track, we arrive at what feels like the epicenter of the decay. We could be at any number of heavily vandalized stations: Heideveld, Lentaker, or the infamous Chris Hani station. They all share the same fate. This isn't just neglect, this is annihilation. The platform is barely recognizable. Trash is strewn everywhere, and makeshift shelters are built right up against the crumbling walls. The concrete is charred from fires. The buildings are just hollowed-out skeletons. It's so hard to imagine that just a few years ago, this was a functioning part of a major city's transit network. It honestly feels post-apocalyptic. And it's in this silence, in this overwhelming sense of loss, that you finally get it. The horror of this place isn't a phantom train appearing in the mist. It's not the ghost of a long-dead passenger. The true horror is the tangible evidence of a system that has failed its most vulnerable people. The real horror is that in a city famous for its beauty, places like this can exist in plain sight. This is the ghost of a broken promise, the ghost of inequality, the ghost of opportunities that were stolen, stripped, and sold for scrap. Before the collapse, a worker from Khayelitsha could get to the city for just a few rand. Now, that same person might spend up to 1,500 rand a month on taxis. That is the haunting. That is the terror. It's the daily, grinding struggle of people who have been physically and economically cut off from their own city. The apartheid city geography, which public transport was supposed to help overcome, is now more entrenched than ever. Leaving the abandoned line and stepping back into the functioning city is a jarring experience. The contrast is almost sickening. Here, life just goes on. Tourists snap photos, cars fill the highways, and Cape Town's economic heart beats strong. But we've just walked through its severed artery. We've seen the aftermath of the hemorrhage. Now, efforts are being made to fix the line. Some sections are slowly reopening, and promises are being made that full service will return. But rebuilding trust is a lot harder than rebuilding tracks. The massive collapse in ridership across the country's rail system wasn't just about infrastructure. It was about reliability and safety. Our journey to find a ghost train led us here. We didn't find spectral conductors or phantom whistles in the night. We found something far more chilling: the ghosts of forgotten commuters. They aren't dead. They are the living, breathing residents of Cape Town who were left behind. They're haunted by longer days, higher costs, and a city that feels further away than ever. The real ghost story of Cape Town isn't in its folklore. It's in the daily lives of those who wait on the side of the road for a taxi they can barely afford, staring down the silent, empty tracks that once promised them a better way. And that is a story that should haunt all of us.